Hello everyone and welcome back to Roboradiology. This is episode 11 of our academic writing series. Today we'll focus on complex sentences. Well, as you know, sentence variety and correct sentence structure use is vital for any form of writing. So stay tuned because this subject is very crucial and we're going to go in detail about it. And also, if you hadn't viewed our previous series and just want to learn about complex sentences, then it is a self-sufficient topic coverage, so it will work for you. Good writers use a variety of sentence patterns in their paragraphs. They sometimes use simple sentences because they are direct, clear, and easy to read. At other times, they combine simple sentences to show the reader the connection between ideas. Good writers also know that a mixture of sentence type can help to keep their readers interested. This does not mean improper usage of complex sentences or overusing it. The writing should be readable, appropriate, and balanced. The model is a processed paragraph that tells the students how to write an email to their course instructor. As you read it, pay attention to time order signals and also the variety of short and long sentences. How to email your course instructor. It is common for students to contact their professor by email to ask a question, explain an absence, or submit an assignment. Before you click the second button on your next email to an instructor, remember that such an email is a piece of business writing with very specific requirements. First of all, use your school email account because the address for this account probably has at least part of your name and the name of your school. It is less likely to go to the junk mail. In addition, your professor will recognize the address when he sees it and know that your message is important. Second, clearly state your purpose in the subject line of your email. For example, you can say Pauli's final draft essay number 3, English 100-02. After that, move on to your actual message. Start out with a greeting such as Hi, Professor Smith, or the more formal Dear Professor Smith. In the body of your email, once again, be very clear and direct. For instance, if you are going to be absent from class, give a brief explanation. Never write an email more than one screen in length. Email messages should be short enough to be read and understood quickly. Also, avoid using slang and text message abbreviations such as "are you" and "between" or "by the way," BTW. End your message with a simple thank you or best regards. Then add your full name and the number of your course. Finally, check your email carefully for grammar and spell mistakes before you send it off. Such details are important as that is not a Facebook post or an informal text message to a friend. Your email must be somewhat formal since you and your professor are involved in the business of teaching and learning. Let's go ahead. Questions about the model. Question number 1. Look at sentence 3. What kind of sentence is it? Simple or compound? First of all, use your school email address. So what do you think? Well, we have one verb which is use, and it is a simple sentence. This is a command. When we use a command, generally subject can be missed. Let's say, close the door. When I'm talking to you and I say close the door, you already knew that I meant please you go close the door, okay? Next question. Find and underline other simple sentences that are commands. How many can you find? Well, I will give you examples. Second, clearly state your purpose in the subject line of the email. In the body of your email, once again, be very clear and direct. Also, avoid using slang and text messaging abbreviations such as RU and BTW. Then add your full name and the name and number of your course. So the sentence number 6, 8, 9, 10, 12, 14, 15, and 16 were simple sentences. And our last question, look at sentence 17. How many subject-verb combinations does it contain? What word connects them? Circle the word. Circle the word. Finally, check your email carefully for grammar and spelling mistakes before you send it off. So here we have the sentence number 17. Finally, well, check is our first verb. Your email carefully for grammar and spelling mistakes. We have before, then we have you, our subject, send it off. Here, as you can see, the greens are the verb, check and send off. You is our subject, and since our first sentence is a command, we do not have a specific subject because it is very obvious that it means you. And here we have before. Before is a subordinator that we are going to talk about it. Clauses. Clauses and complex sentences is our main topic. In chapter 1 and 2, you learn about simple sentences and compound sentences. In this chapter, you will study a third kind of sentence called a complex sentence. A clause is a group of words that contains at least one subject and one verb. The student arrived late. So we have the student arrived. Okay, these are our subject-verb combination. Because she wasn't feeling well. She and wasn't is our subject-verb combination. There are two kinds of clauses in English, independent clause and dependent clause. Independent clause can be a sentence by itself, or two independent clauses can be joined with the conjunctions like and, but, or, so, for, yet, and nor, which are the fanboys, and we already discussed them in detail. You can go back and check the videos. The professor provided his email address. Well, this is an independent clause and also a simple sentence. The professor is our subject, provided is our verb, his email address, which is our object. So, the professor provided his email address, comma, but some students did not write it down. So this is our compound sentence, and we have a sort of conjunction, which is but, fanboys. Okay, independent clauses. Sorry, we already covered independent clauses. Dependent clauses. A dependent clause, in contrast, cannot be a sentence by itself. A dependent clause depends on something else to complete its meaning. Here are some examples. So that the students could send him their composition. You know, the meaning is not complete. Because they were not paying attention. So, a complex sentence is a combination of one independent clause and one or more dependent clause. So, independent clause in this picture is, the student arrived late. You know, it has a complete meaning. But when we have a subordinator like because in the beginning, this will make the next clause dependent. Because she wasn't feeling well, it is a dependent clause. The professor gave the class his email address. Well, it is an independent clause and complete. So that the students could send him their compositions. We have so it is a dependent clause. Punctuation in complex sentences. Usually the independent and dependent clauses in complex sentences can be in any order. However, the punctuation is different depending on the order. In a complex sentence, when the dependent adverb clause comes first, separate the clause with a comma. When the independent clause comes first, do not separate them. As you can see here, let me use my laser pointer. The student had a problem because they did not write down their professor's email address. So here we have our independent clause. This is because. Because is our dependent adverb clause. Okay? So when the independent clause is first, we do not use comma and we write down the dependent clause right after. In the other case, because they did not write down their professor's email address, comma, the students had a problem. So, because we'll begin our dependent clause. And when a dependent clause comes first, we need to use comma and then follow with our independent clause. In the meaning, there's a difference because when we put something first, the focus and our main intention for attention is put on our first clause that we chose to show. Subordinators. A dependent adverb clause always begins with a subordinating conjunction or subordinator. There are different kinds of subordinators. We have time subordinators, begin a clause that tells when something happens. We have reason subordinators, begin a clause that tells why something happens. Purpose subordinators begins a clause that tells the purpose or objective of an event or action. Conditional subordinators begin a clause that tells the condition under which something can occur. Good. Here are examples of time subordinators. We have after, as soon as, before, since, until, when, whenever, and while. So, after. He goes to school after he finishes work. As. Here it can be also other forms of subordinators that we are going to discuss later on. I entered the classroom as the professor was beginning her lecture. So, as soon as. The professor stopped talking as soon as I entered the room. Before. Before you attend college, comma, you have to fill out an application. Since. It has been an hour since the test started. Until. We can't leave the room until everyone has finished the test. When. When you start college, and notice the comma, you sometimes have to take a placement test. Whenever. Whenever I don't sleep well, I feel sick the next day. While. I felt nervous while I was taking my first exam. So, pay attention to punctuation and the formations as well. Reason subordinators. As I said, as and since, they can be either a time subordinator or a reason subordinator. And also notice that since can be both a time and reason subordinator as well. So, reason subordinator. As the number of scholarships is limited, it is important to submit your application as soon as possible. Because I did well on my exam because I studied hard. Since this is a required course, you must take it. Purpose and condition subordinators. Purpose subordinator like so that. I studied hard so that I would do well on the exam. Condition subordinators. If or unless. If your professor gives a list of class rules, you must be sure to follow them. Practice 7b, page 140. it is page 140 of Longman Academic Writing Book 3. You can find many more practices for you in the book as well. We'll only do 2 here. Well, underline the independent clause and double underline the dependent clause. Circle the subordinator. Add a comma as needed. Number 1, when, well, which is our subordinator, we circle. Students email their professors. Double underline for our dependent clause and make it a practice. Do it more and more for you to understand. It's very important to notice them because sometimes we learn subconsciously. You will reach a point in your English language learning or any form of learning that it will come natural to you. And it is much easier for you to develop it in this way. Comma, they often expect an immediate reply. So when students email their professors, they often expect an immediate reply, well, which is not appropriate, I would say. The next, it is really impossible to get a response right away. We don't have any subordinator at the beginning, so we do not need comma. We have because, which is our subordinator. Because professors are very busy people, and double underline for our dependent clause. Thank you so much for sticking till now. Please share and subscribe to RoboRadiology. It really means a lot for me. And keep learning. I will see you soon.